30 minutes with a stranger in a lobby was all it took to make her question her love for her faithful husband. Not because he had failed her, not because anything was missing. Clara had already survived cancer with this man at her bedside, counting her pills, shaving his own head so she wouldn't lose her hair alone. She would have told you, without blinking, that she was the last woman on earth this could happen to. Then, in an elevator, she looked down at her phone and found a stranger's number already saved there. She hadn't seen him type it, she hadn't handed him her phone, and yet there it was, sitting in her contacts like it had always belonged. What she did with what happened next, whether she let it become something or whether she found the strength to walk away from it, is the reason this story is worth your next few minutes. Stay till the end. And before we get into it, if stories like this move you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us what you would have done in Clara's place. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you more stories like this one. Clara found out she had cancer on a Wednesday, in a small consultation room that smelled like hand sanitizer and old paper. She was 34. She remembers staring at the doctor's mouth moving and not hearing a single word after malignant. She remembers her hands going cold. She remembers thinking absurdly that she still had to pick up dry cleaning that afternoon. She does not remember calling her husband, but she remembers him arriving at the hospital in his work shirt, top button still done, tie still on, like he'd run straight out of a meeting without stopping to breathe. Edward didn't cry in front of her that day. He held her hand so tightly it left a mark, and he said only one thing. Okay, we're going to fight this. Both of us. Both of us. Not you, us. That was the beginning of the year Clara would later call the long winter. Even though Lagos doesn't have winters, even though the sun kept rising every single morning like it didn't know a war was happening in her body. The chemotherapy came first, and with it came the nausea that flattened her for days, the metallic taste that ruined every meal, the fatigue so total it felt like her bones had turned to wet sand. Then her hair started coming out in the shower, in clumps, tangled around her fingers like something dying separate from her. She cried the first time it happened. Not because of the illness itself, she had somehow made peace with the diagnosis faster than she made peace with her reflection. It was the hair. It felt like the last thing being taken from her, piece by piece, in front of a mirror that no longer recognized her. Edward found her sitting on the closed toilet lid that morning, hair in her lap, sobbing quietly so the sound wouldn't travel. He didn't say anything comforting. He didn't tell her it would grow back or that she was still beautiful or any of the things people say when they don't know what else to say. Instead, he walked out of the bathroom and Clara heard the buzz of the clippers from the bedroom. 20 minutes later, he walked back in. Bald. Completely bald, his scalp pale and unfamiliar, smiling at her like he'd just done something ordinary, like buying milk. "Now we match," he said. Clara laughed so hard she started crying again, a different kind of crying this time, the kind that comes when your heart is too full to hold what it's feeling. She told him he looked like a genie who'd lost his lamp. He told her she looked like an alien who'd landed in the wrong hospital. They sat on the bathroom floor together, bald and laughing and terrified, and for the first time since the diagnosis, Clara felt like she could survive this. That became their rhythm for the next 8 months. Edward working from a chair pulled up beside her hospital bed, laptop balanced on his knees, phone calls muted so he could count out her medication first. Edward setting alarms for her short walks around the ward and walking beside her at her pace, never his. Edward falling asleep upright in uncomfortable chairs because he refused to leave her alone at night, not even once, not even when the nurses told him he could go home and rest. He never once made her feel like a burden. He made her feel like the only person in the world worth staying up for. Clara beat the cancer. 5 years of remission followed. 5 years of hair growing back curlier than before, of her body slowly forgiving her again, of birthdays and anniversaries, and the quiet, unglamorous business of being married to someone who had already proven in the worst year of her life exactly who he was. She thought she understood completely what she had. She thought gratitude like that was armor. She was wrong. Not because Edward had changed, not because anything between them had cracked, but because life has a cruel sense of timing and it does not ask permission before testing the things you thought were unbreakable. It happened on a Tuesday morning in Lagos, 5 years to the month after her last chemo session. Clara walked into her office building the way she walked in every day, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, mind already 3 meetings ahead of her body. She wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't unhappy. If you had asked her that morning to rate her marriage, she would have said, without hesitation, an 11 out of 10. And then she looked up. There was a man standing near the reception desk, phone pressed to his ear, and something about the way he occupied space stopped her mid-stride. He was tall in a way that should have looked awkward, all long limbs and sharp angles, but instead looked deliberate, like he'd been drawn by someone who understood proportion. His shoulders filled his jacket without straining it, and he stood the way confident men stand when no one has ever told them to make themselves smaller. Weight settled, unhurried, like the room had been built around wherever he happened to be standing. His suit fit him the way expensive tailoring fits a person. Not tight, not loose, just correct. His sunglasses were pushed up, slightly too large for his face, and somehow that flaw only made the rest of him more interesting. He looked up, he saw her, and he smiled. Not the polite, closed-mouth smile strangers give each other in lobbies, but something warmer, something that suggested recognition, as if he'd been expecting her. Clara smiled back before she could decide not to. She told herself, later, that it was reflex, that smiling at a stranger's smile is just manners. But manners don't explain why her feet turned toward him instead of the elevator. "Do we know each other?" she asked, still smiling, genuinely unsure. He said something into the phone, "Let me call you back," and ended the call the way some people end conversations, completely, without a flicker of reluctance, as if nothing on the other end mattered as much as the person now in front of him. He turned his whole body toward her, not just his face, his whole body, like she'd earned his full attention simply by existing. They talked for 30 minutes. Later, Clara would try to reconstruct what they'd actually discussed and come up empty. It was nothing. Weather and work, and some joke about the elevator being slow, and also, somehow, everything. He asked questions that felt like they'd been waiting to be asked. He laughed at things she said with her exact sense of humor, not a polite approximation of it. He disagreed with her once, gently, about something inconsequential, and she found herself enjoying the disagreement more than she'd enjoyed being agreed with in years. She was late for her meeting. She apologized and turned to leave. In the elevator, she looked down at her phone out of habit, and there it was. His number, already saved, already there, under a name she didn't remember choosing. L. She could not remember him touching her phone. She could not remember typing anything. That unsettled her more than anything else that morning. Not the attraction, not the 30 minutes, but the number appearing like it had always been there, like some part of her had wanted it there before she'd consciously agreed. Clara stood in that elevator and understood with total clarity exactly what was happening to her. She was not confused. She was not naive. She knew the shape of this feeling, and she knew where it could lead if she let it. She smiled anyway, because it felt good. Because somewhere in the last 5 years, without meaning to, she had stopped being someone new to anyone. Edward knew all her stories already. He knew which of her jokes were recycled, which of her opinions had changed and hadn't, exactly how she took her tea. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being fully known. Not bad exhaustion, just the quiet flatness of familiarity. And here was a man who made her feel for 30 minutes like a woman with secrets still worth discovering. She told herself it was harmless. For 2 weeks, Clara and the man she'd started calling privately, Grant, spoke on the phone, sometimes once a day, sometimes 3 times. He was sharp and funny in a way that surprised her, curious about the parts of her life that Edward had long since filed under things Clara talks about too much. Her half-finished thesis on urban design, her theories about why Lagos traffic worked the way it did, the novel she kept saying she'd write and never did. Grant asked about all of it like it was fascinating, because to him it was. He hadn't heard it 11 times already. He hadn't heard it at all. There was no subject they avoided. Their conversations wandered into places conversations aren't supposed to wander this early. Desire, past relationships, the things people want and rarely say out loud. It felt dangerous in a way that also felt like oxygen. Clara told herself every single day some version of the same sentence. I still love my husband. And it was true. That was the strange, uncomfortable center of the whole thing. She wasn't falling out of love with Edward. She was simply discovering that love and fascination are not the same currency, and that a marriage can be entirely intact and still leave a person hungry for the particular thrill of being unknown to someone. She did not tell Edward any of this. Not because she was plotting something, she told herself, but because there was nothing to tell. Nothing physical had happened, nothing physical, she was certain, ever would. Then one day, Grant suggested they meet again, in person. Just to talk, he said, just coffee. Clara said yes before she'd let herself think about it properly. The morning of, she dressed with a kind of care she hadn't used getting ready in years. Not for Edward, she noted with a small twist of guilt, but for a man she'd known for 2 weeks. She told her husband she had a town hall meeting. The lie came out easily, which frightened her more than the lie itself. She was almost at the door when she heard Edward's footsteps behind her, quick, urgent. Babe, you forgot your multivitamins. He dropped the small bottle into her open bag, the way he'd done almost every morning for the past 5 years without fail. A habit born in a hospital room, never abandoned once she got better. Because for Edward, caring for her hadn't been a phase of crisis. It had simply become who he was. He kissed her on the mouth, quick and easy, and smacked her lightly on the backside the way he always did, laughing at his own audacity even after all these years. Have a good day, babe, he said. And he said it the way he always said it, like her day genuinely mattered to him, like his own good day was somehow downstream of hers. Clara stood frozen at the door for a moment. Something in her chest cracked open, not violently, but the way ice cracks under weight, slow and total. She thought about the bathroom floor, both of them bald and laughing. She thought about the hospital chair he'd slept upright in for months. She thought of 100 small mornings just like this one, vitamins and kisses, and a man who had not once, not for a single day of their marriage, made her feel unchosen. Edward had not failed her, not once, not in any way she could name, point to, or justify. And that was exactly the trap of it. She had convinced herself that a relationship only becomes vulnerable when something is missing, but nothing was missing. She simply wanted for a moment to feel like a discovery again, instead of a home. She turned around and went back to her room. She took off the dress, she wiped away the makeup she had applied so carefully. She sat down on the edge of the bed, and in the quiet, she finally let herself feel the full weight of what she'd been doing for 2 weeks. The small daily betrayals of attention, the phone calls hidden in bathroom stalls, the thrill she'd been feeding in secret while telling herself it cost nothing. She picked up her phone and typed a message to Grant. I can't do this. I'm not sorry. My husband deserves better from me. She sent it. Then she blocked his number before she could reconsider, before the part of her that missed the thrill already could talk her out of it. Then, with the same steady hands, she deleted the contact entirely. The name, the number, every trace of it, so there would be nothing left if the missing ever came back looking for an excuse. She did not cry. She sat there for a long time, feeling the heaviness of what she'd almost done, and underneath the heaviness, something steadier, the quiet certainty that she had made the right choice, even though no one but her would ever know she had to make it at all. "I'll deal with the guilt later," she told herself. "For now, I've made my choice and I'm sticking with it." We have built a comforting lie around love and faithfulness. The idea that if a relationship is strong enough, if a partner is good enough, no one else will ever tempt us. We tell ourselves that good people, disciplined people, people in genuinely happy marriages, simply don't feel what Clara felt in that elevator. It isn't true. One day, you will meet someone who feels more fascinating than your partner. It might happen on an ordinary Tuesday in a lobby over nothing that matters. It can happen even when your partner has done nothing wrong, even when he shaves his head for you, sleeps upright in hospital chairs for you, drops vitamins into your bag every single morning for 5 straight years without missing one. Attraction is not a referendum on your marriage. It is a fact of being human, wired for novelty, curious by nature, capable of being moved by more than one person in a lifetime. The question was never whether Clara would feel it. The question was what she would do once she did. That is the real story here. Not the temptation, but the discipline. Not the elevator, but the bathroom. 10 minutes later, phone in hand, dress back in the closet. I hope when your own version of Grant appears, and he will, in some form at some point, dressed however your particular weakness is dressed, I hope you remember that the feeling itself is not the betrayal. The choice is. I hope you're ready to fight your own self when that day comes, and to keep reminding yourself of the one thing Clara learned the hard way, in a bathroom, blocking a number, refusing to cry. There is no love without discipline.